All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We still have some folks joining us, so welcome everyone. We'll just go through some basic housekeeping things for today. Please keep your microphones muted for the duration of the webinar. We will take questions. You can enter them in the chat box, or we'll have some time to ask at the end. And this webinar will be recorded, so if you know someone that wanted to watch and couldn't make it today, we will post that online later this week, so not to worry. Now this week, we're talking about bonsai basics. So this is our Tree Talks monthly webinar series sponsored by Georgia Power. So thank you to them. And basically each month we are bringing in folks related to the tree care community in all different ways. So bonsai, reclaimed wood, fruit trees, anything and everything. So this month's talk is Bonsai Basics with Shem Kendrick of Coastal Arbor Care. Now, a quick little description of who we are. For those of you who aren't familiar, we are the Savannah Tree Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization here in Chatham County. We've been around since 1982, and is our mission to protect and grow Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. And those last two in particular, we can do through these webinars. There's a lot of really great topics we can talk about to engage the community and advocate for trees. Now, today's speaker is Shem Kendrick. Some of you may know him. He is renowned in the tree care community here. He is the co-owner of Coastal Arbor Care, a local tree care company that's been around since 2010. And he is an ISA certified arborist. And ISA is the International Society of Arboriculture. They're sort of the gold standard for arborists. In his off hours, Shem practices the art of bonsai in his backyard. These art pieces range from young seedlings to decades-old trees, all in a small pot. And this tree here that he's posing with is decades old. He also serves as a board member of the Savannah Tree Foundation and volunteers his time regularly to improve the tree care industry. Now, one thing that I did want to note for today is that due to scheduling conflicts, Shem actually pre-recorded his webinar. So I'm going to play the video of that. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. If it's something that I can't answer, I will pass it along to Shem and we will get back to you. But let me switch this over now to our video.
Hello, everyone. As Jake probably mentioned, my name is Shem Kendrick, and I work at Coastal Arbor Care Tree Service here in Savannah, Georgia. And today we're going to talk a little bit, actually tonight, y'all will probably be seeing this during the day, but tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the art of bonsai. And so what is bonsai? And that is actually translated from Japanese, and it means a tree in a pot. So pretty loose definition, so it could be a lot of things. There are certain species of trees that work better. They do well with their roots being pruned a lot and kind of kept in a compact form, as well as trees that have smaller leaves. You wouldn't so much want to say a London plane tree as a bonsai because the leaves are rather large on it. And anyway, as a tree care professional myself, I felt like at some point it was just kind of the natural progression of how things should go that I would dabble a little bit in bonsai. And yeah, so I'm here and we're gonna look at, first before we get started, we're gonna look around and I'm just gonna show you a few pieces that I've put together. And I will tell you, I am no bonsai master and still learning myself. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but I can at least help you get started on your journey, and I would like to point you in the direction of some bonsai masters who could really take you from there. But hopefully tonight you're intrigued and you want to try it for yourself. What we're going to put together tonight is going to be just a low budget bonsai forest. That's what we're going to focus on as a forest. So here I've got a couple forests. Grab this. We'll take a close up. So if you can see here, I have a piece of granite that I have carved out. So I carved out just enough room to get the root system of this tree down there. And these are just 2-year-old trident maple seedlings. Obviously right now they're dormant, so they don't look very interesting, and they really won't look very interesting for a couple years, but one day that'll be quite the piece. So one thing we're gonna talk about is when we create a forest, we're going for a look that is nature. So these are junipers. Here we have some Japanese maples. So we're trying to mimic a tree in nature or a forest in nature on a much smaller scale. So one thing you'll notice here is we want to try to avoid symmetry. So we don't want all our trunks lining up. You can see here they're all kind of staggered. They're on different angles. This one was a little hard because it was a bit linear. You can see the trunks there are staggered. They're spaced different. Ideally you want different size trunks, but I was dealing with all 2-year-old seedlings. So wasn't really able to achieve that. We have a little bit here, you know, we got some small. Another thing is we want to never have an even number of trees. Let's go over here and look at, oh, here we go. This is a willow leaf ficus, and this breaks the rule I just told you. But it was fun to play with, and I think it looks quite nice. Here we have another, these are a couple different kind of ficus. Then over here, I apologize about the backdrop. We have bald cypress here. There's quite a few trees in there. I believe there is 33 trees. But once again here, you can see nice different size trees. Trunks varying distance. Some are clumped together, some are spaced out. So yeah, that's what we're going for there. Okay, so as I mentioned before, tonight's forest that we're putting together is going to be on a budget. So I actually, bonsai pots can be very, very expensive. Sometimes a pot this size could be at a minimum of $50 up to several hundred, even $1,000 or more. So I just bought this is actually just a plate that goes under a pot at I believe I got this at Lowe's, and it was about $6 or $7, but it didn't have any holes in it. So with bonsai, and I'll get more into this later, one of the most important things with a tree in a small pot is going to be drainage. So you can see this is a legit, not on a budget, bonsai pot, and it has 2 very large drainage holes. I don't have a good bit that would drill a hole that big, so I have put multiple holes in here. And I'm gonna show you a little secret for drilling a hole in clay, because I'll start with this. My bit is actually a tile bit. It's very inexpensive. You can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's. But yeah, when we're drilling through here, we don't want to drill all the way through, because what will happen is we'll break out a lot of the clay on the back side. So we're just going to drill until you start to feel the resistance let up. All right, I think I feel it there. Yep, and you can see it just coming through there. So now we can go to this side. There we go. That just keeps it from cracking the clay at all. So another thing, when we're talking about bonsai pots, is in order to bonsai a tree, we are restricting its root systems, and we are pruning it, and that's why we get a miniature tree that looks like a mature one. So we'll step over here and I'll show you what I'm referring to here. Here we have, not sure how well you can see this in the dark, we have a 27-year-old cryptomeria. Not my work. At the end of this video, I will tell you where you can purchase a tree similar to this one. It's a beautiful specimen here. You can see the size of the Nabari, which is what this root flare is called, which gives it the appearance. That and the large trunk in comparison to the small limbs are what give bonsai the appearance of a mature old tree on a smaller scale. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about soil types. So with bonsai, given that we have such a shallow container, as you can see here, we're restricting the root system. It's really important that every root in here is functioning to its full capacity. So bonsai soil is a mixture that allows for water to freely flow through and get to the roots, but also doesn't retain water. We want it to dry out rather quickly so we don't get root rot. It's very important. Also want a lot of air in there, so a really good balance of those two. It's also allows for the fertilization to reach the roots quickly, as well as wash off. But the main thing is just a great balance of water and oxygen. So there's a lot of really expensive types of bonsai soil. Probably the best one, and I'm not going to get detailed on this. Tons of videos. I'll give you recommendations for further research on this. But akadama, pumice, lava, especially akadama, a mixture of those. Let's see, I have it in this tree over here. You can see, wow, this is really coarse. You know, up to about a 1/4 inch pieces we have here. So that's a really good soil for your trees, but it's also very expensive. You know, we could spend about $20 to $30 to pot up a tree this size. So what I have here is a pretty good alternative. Once again, we're on a budget. So we just have some diatomaceous earth. This is a pretty good alternative. And we can mix this with just a little bit of regular soil, some triple ground pine bark, maybe some coarse river sand. Here we have a little bit of a cheaper all-purpose blend. This is pretty good stuff. It's a little bit of akadama. I'll pull it out and show you here. A little bit of akadama, coarse river sand, and triple ground pine bark. So that'll save you a little bit of money. Yeah, so once again, back to these holes here, these drainage holes. So these are gonna serve two purposes. One is drainage, obviously, that's the #1 priority. And then the other is gonna be anchorage of the trees we're gonna put in here. Because given there's so little soil, if these things aren't anchored in there, they're simply gonna fall over because there's not enough weight holding them in there. So the first thing we're gonna do here is get an idea of what design. So I switched around here so I could get the camera a little farther away. Let me make sure we're angled right, because I'm a team of one tonight. Perfect. So I'm kind of thinking I want to add maybe a little rock in here. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have the best rocks. You wouldn't probably find one of these in nature, but heck with it. I might try to play around with it. We'll see if it fits. We got that one there. Got another one over here. I'm gonna sit here. See if I can not show that flat edge very much. Another thing with bonsai is that we're really showcasing it from the front. So the side that you're facing is really where we want this art piece to be most presentable. Now that doesn't mean we don't want to neglect the back, but it's really all about the show this way. So I think that could possibly work. Might go with that. Let's play around with it. Might even go on an angle. That would really look better. All right, so we have some Eastern redbuds, thanks to the Savannah Tree Foundation. Now these are bare root, so there's no soil on them. Ooh, they have quite the root systems. Now, I'll be honest, I have never done a piece with bare rootstock, and would not advise that you do either. We are working with what we have. Normally, if I would have had more time, I would have probably planted these in soil first, given them some time to recover, and then tried to work with them. It's a little bit risky, so to be honest, we might lose a few trees in this piece, but we're doing this for the demonstration. So, but yeah, if you were to get, excuse me, if you were to get these bare rooted trees, wow, look at those root systems. Then I would suggest putting them in soil, because these have been grown, probably, my guess would probably be in gravel. That's why we got such a lengthy root system, which is awesome for surviving, you know, in planting in the field. But you can see that's a lot to take down for here. So if you were to get these bare root, I would suggest plant them in a pot, maybe cut the roots back a little bit, because really what we want to do, instead of these fine roots way out here in bonsai, you're compressing the root system, so we want a lot of finer rooting up here. So the really only way to do that would be put it in a small pot, force the roots to go up here, because what they were grown in obviously promoted the elongation of the roots there. But we're gonna try these. So as I might have mentioned this earlier, we want an odd number of trees. Unfortunately, most of these seem to have the same diameter trunks. Seem to have about the same diameter trunks. So we've got 9. I'm gonna go with that. So the first thing we're gonna do, you don't need fancy bonsai tools. We're just gonna start preparing these. Get out of the way. We're gonna have to get this main taproot down a little bit. So we're gonna save these side roots that are able to go out. So we're gonna save as much of those as possible. We're gonna take this one going straight down, because that's gonna keep us from getting it into this pot. Make a nice clean cut there. Again, we're gonna unfortunately have to save more of this than we would normally like to. But I'm gonna go ahead and take it back just a, oops. So you're getting a little dull on me. So we're saving as much of that fine root as we can. All right, we got one there. So let's talk about different stocks. So tonight we're using this. Tonight we're using these trees that are bare rooted, because that's what Savannah Tree Foundation provided. Thank you very much. But as I mentioned, it's not optimal to use bare root trees for this, and that's mainly because we're stressing them farther, and bare rooting a tree already stresses it. But yeah, as far as other, if you want to grow your own, if you want to buy seedlings, they're really inexpensive. You can order them online. They're easy to ship. They're relatively quick to grow, 1 to 2 years. And now obviously, you know, it's going to take years and years and years and a lot of patience to develop a great bonsai forest. But got to start somewhere. And that's one thing I really like about bonsai forests, is instead of waiting years and years on a single tree to thicken its trunk and gain foliage and mass before it becomes anything exciting, you slap a couple trees in a pot, and suddenly you got something that looks pretty interesting. And that's not to say that it reaches potential right away, but there's a lot more to work with, and you can enjoy it while it develops. This part's rather annoying. but it's very important because this is what's going to give us anchorage for those trees to hold them in this pot. Just going to go like this. Hold the kinds together. Keep them from falling out. So now what I'm doing, I'm just putting these little screens over the holes. This is what's going to keep our particles from running out, because we don't want our soil to just drain out the bottom of these. So this is very important. Now if you were using a larger substrate, such as what I mentioned earlier, the akadama or akadama pumice or lava, those are going to be a lot bigger, so depending on the size of your holes, you may not need to use these screens at all. A lot of that substrate will tell you what size it is, and these might become null in that scenario. In this case, we're using a little bit of a finer substrate, not much, but I think these trees are going to do really good in that. Now, as these trees mature, it is important to know what I mentioned earlier with these cheaper alternatives as far as the soil goes. Those are great and all, but eventually, when you're on a budget, you know. But eventually, as these trees mature and they grow in value, you really just can't replace the good quality bonsai soil, such as the akadama, because with the akadama, what you get is just like you see in a tree. You know, you got the trunk, the big leads or the large limbs, and then those branch off into the smaller secondary limbs, and then all the way down to twigs. That just division of branching. It's the same in the soil, and that's what akadama really helps with. Is it's a really big particle, and those roots, those fine roots, grow into it, and then they branch out. They break that akadama up. They branch out, and they keep branching out, and they keep dividing. And that's really what you're looking for with bonsai, is that the more those roots divide, the more you'll get refined growth. Fine roots equals fine leaves and fine growth, and that's what we're trying to do. Over time, we're stunting this tree. All right, so we got this rock in here, and then what I'm gonna do is, we don't want that rock touching on the bottom of this clay pot, because you know, if we pick it up, we set it down, whoops, what we're gonna get is that rock hitting against that clay, and we could easily break the clay pot, and that would be a disaster because we'd be started at zero. So another thing, while I'm doing this, I'm just gonna go ahead and put a bit of soil in the whole thing. So we don't want much soil. Just a nice little thin layer. I would say maybe, now this is going to depend on the size of your pot, but maybe about a ½ inch tops. Spread that around evenly. Now, if this rock I'm putting in here was any bigger, then I would more than likely tie down the rock itself. I'm not really that worried about the rock being tied down, so I'm gonna put a tree on top of this. We're gonna tie that down real good. Let's see, we've got a spray bottle. It's important that while we're working on this, we keep these roots wet. Jake had these roots kept nice and moist in a bucket of water. I'm just going to mist them off periodically so they don't dry out. I'm going to kind of build up under where this rock is going to go. This is also a good idea because now I'm going to be able to get roots under where this rock is too. So we're going to wedge it in there. Let's see. I might do more. Let's see how that looks. I can dig it. So I should also mention, while we're talking budget bonsai here, excuse me, that southern in me coming out. I saved this one aside because I couldn't really get the roots down like I wanted, so I think this one would make a good one for over the rock. Yeah, while we're talking budget bonsai, is traditionally you wouldn't have a round pot for a forest planting like this. You really want to go with an oval, or as I did over there with the rocks. I really enjoy doing it on the rocks. It's really cheap too, but I just enjoy it. It seems like a piece of nature, you know, just to be on a rock. But the pot is great. The trick with doing it on the rock, it can be a little bit trickier because there's no sidewall. So I'll get in that a little bit later, but I used a different mixture of soil to hold the walls in. So maybe on your first try, it might be better to do it in a pot with sides like this. Yeah, once again, just a cheap pot, but traditionally you go with an oval one. But have fun with it. Do what makes you happy. There's a lot of rules in bonsai, and I feel like you can get caught up in those and too worried about them, and at the end of the day I want to do what makes me happy. Now there's a lot of rules that are there for a reason, because that's what the tree needs. So we don't want to go off on a tangent too far, but definitely make it your Bob Ross painting. Put a happy little tree right here. So that one actually kind of fits over that rock quite nicely. Worked it in there. Good thing is all these fine roots are going to be down here in the pot, which I like. I didn't trim the roots back on this, so I'm going to cut a little bit. But yeah, if we're going up on a rock, we don't want, there's not many fibrous roots there, so even if those roots are exposed, it's going to be fine. It's got plenty of roots down here in the soil. Yeah, so I'm actually kind of digging that. All right, so traditionally, if you had multiple different size trees, you know, some taller, shorter, different size trunks, then we would really want to compose the piece before we anchored anything in. Working here, they're all kind of the same size and they're all the same height, and they've never been pruned before, so it's pretty easy. I mean, we're just gonna as we go into this, we're just gonna mainly focus on keeping them spaced separately. As I mentioned before, we don't want trees that have the same spacing. I'm gonna go on that because, you know, we can go sideways, get it nice, and then we can bend this later. So I'm gonna put that one there. Let's see here. Tuck these roots under this rock. Yeah, digging that. Really digging that. Now another thing is, since these are bare root, I'm just gonna put that wire there to hold it. Since these are bare rooted trees, it's gonna be a lot trickier to get them to stay in place, because normally you would have some soil on these roots. Take these back a little bit more. Normally we would have some soil, kind of a little root ball, so they would hold in place a lot more. The good thing is in this situation, we're kind of skipping over a whole process, which would normally be, taking the root ball back, and really getting that soil and teasing the roots away, so that we could actually fit them in a pot like this. So yeah, we're starting in a way we normally wouldn't be. So another thing to keep in mind is, let's see, I have to find where these are. Ugh. Yeah, this is a little tricky on these bare rooted ones. They've got quite a root system, so might have to play with that a little harder to be able to get them to. I might actually have to put some wires to kind of guide them in place until they develop a little bit. So once again, normally, if we were working with a tree that had been grown in a small container, which is what we would like to do, this whole root system, and we would have the same amount of roots, but it would actually, maybe be 2 inches tall at most. But as you can see, you got all these fibrous roots down here. These are what the tree really needs. So these bigger anchoring roots and they support these roots, the fine fibrous roots, but the fiber roots are really what's important to save on these trees as we do this. So unfortunately, we can't cut it as much as we normally do. So this is a learning experience for me too. All right, let's keep getting some in here. This is kind of cool, intertwine those. I like it. We're getting there. Oh yeah, I didn't take this one back enough. So once again, I can't stress enough that normally we would not be working with bare root trees. I'm gonna take this whole root off. So I really hope, wish me luck. I hope this thing survives. If you were to get bare root trees, again, that's a great way to get the trees because they're very affordable and they're easy to ship. But I would definitely let them recover, plant them in a pot. You could even go in and prune just like we've root pruned. Let's see, where's that wire? Excuse me. Prune just like we root pruned, but then wait about a year, put them in some good soil, and maybe wait a full season. Trying to get this wire down in there, and let those root systems kind of compact into a smaller container size before we really get in there. That would make this process a lot easier. So just trying to get them all in there, and then once we get them in place, we're going to kind of tie them together when we think the trunks look cool. This is pretty hard to work with these. I know I haven't said that enough. We're gonna try to keep as many of these roots down in the. Ooh. I'm getting really brave with this one because I don't think it's gonna go down in there. A good thing about forest too is that we've got a lot of trees in here, and if we lose one or two, it's not the end of the world. You can either plant a seed, you could probably fit another one down in here maybe after. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, we have enough that it's not going to be the end of the world. Now we're making a little headway. These are really tedious to work with, but now we're working into anchoring them into this pot. So we're going to take those wires we put in there. Generally we would pull over the root system and tie down on the side so that we could tuck it into the soil, because we really don't want to expose these. But I'll be honest, all bets are kind of off the table right now because this is proving to be quite the pain to work with. So we're just kind of going for whatever we can get. So you're going to use one set, but then don't cut them off yet, because we can tie them to the other ones. Another big one is going to be anchoring what we have over this rock. So that's going to be an important anchor. That one we're going to try to tuck back here to the back as much as possible. Now, after about, I would say, a year, definitely by 2-year mark, these roots are really going to intertwine and hold this into place on its own. So here we're just kind of tightening that down. These pliers, we don't want to turn too much, because this aluminum does break. You can see now that that's holding in there pretty good. So let's see here. Cut this little root here that's going to be sticking out of the pot. So I'm really not liking how some of this is just kind of untraditional how we're working with these, but we're gonna make it happen. Just mainly the way it's tying down, since there's no root mass. It's just roots that are kind of springing them every which way. But we're good. We got these tied down nice. All right, so our trunks. So this one kind of lines up a little bit too much for that, but we can bring it that way. There we go. That's pulling that way. I like that. After we get this all set in place, we're going to come in with some wire and train our trunks the way we want them to go. All right, that's coming together. Move this out of your view. I'm really excited. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're interested in trees enough to know what an eastern redbud looks like in bloom, and kind of can't wait to see what we come up with here, because that's going to be quite an impressive sight. Anyway, I believe what you missed out on is I was packing in the soil. What we used here is just a simple chopstick, and I'm just going to pack this in all around these roots. This is really, really important. We want to get out all these spaces between the roots, make sure we have the soil nice, and we're not packing it in here, but we're making sure there's no large air pockets. Just as important as it is that air gets into the soil, into these roots, it's also important that we don't have an excess of oxygen down in there. So we're going to trim any roots that are sticking up above the surface of the soil. So I've already done a good bit of this. Now what I'm going to do, I've already applied some wire to these. So we're gonna start separating these. Actually, you know what we might do? First is yeah, we'll do that. Let me make sure I got this camera. Yeah, you can see. I know it's hard to see. It's nighttime. Probably not the best time to do this. But at the end, we're gonna post a picture of the top. So I've already put some wire on this. I'm just gonna show you what I can do with this wire. So I'm gonna bend this trunk into the shape I want it to grow. Another thing about bonsai is that straight trunks. Now there are plenty. I mean, there's different styles of bonsai. So some like a formal upright, we would want a perfectly straight trunk. But for the most part in bonsai, you don't want straight trunks. You want interesting movement in there. So that's what we're using that wire for. So let's see here. And generally on the wire, you want to use this is aluminum wire. You can buy it online from any bonsai outlet. Let's see, I want that movement to be seen from the front, so we're going to change that angle a little bit. So with the wire, you generally want about to use wire that's about a third the thickness of the limb. If we're doing a really hard bend, you might want to go a little thicker gauge. Now, as far as leaving this wire on, we're going to leave this wire on here. Apologize about the movement in the camera. So we're just going to wrap it around here, nice and tight. But we're going to move in the, as far as how long we leave it on, really varies. Say if we're working on a juniper, we might leave that wire on for about 18 months, maybe even 24 months. It's another tree such as like I think you're a Japanese maple, you might remove that wire as soon as 2 to 3 months. We really just want to keep an eye on the bark and make sure that it's not cutting into the bark, because we don't want to leave ugly scars. And some trees will correct those scars pretty easily, and others won't. So yeah, we're just gonna get a little bit of movement in there. I like that. I like that a lot. You know what? I might double up. Unfortunately, I ran out of the gauge of wire that was in between that bigger stuff here. I think that's 4 gauge, and this little stuff. So I'm just gonna double up, follow that same pattern that I just did. So honestly, I've never worked with Eastern Redbud, so I'm just as excited for this as hopefully you might be. So I'll keep you. It would be cool to do maybe we'll do a follow-up post on the Savannah Tree Foundation's Facebook and see check in on this thing in a year or so. As I mentioned, I wouldn't suggest working with bare rooted stock, so we might check up on it in a year and it might be dead, or some of them might be dead, but yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's see, I don't want to make this bend equal to the other, so maybe I'll start with a lower bend in the trunk, and then yeah, there we go. I like that. We just don't want to go. So I'm using this thicker wire here. Let's see, which one do I want that? I think I'm gonna put it on this nice one that we have. Up here on the rock. Really digging this rock. I wish I had a little bit of a better rock, but one that looked a little bit more natural, but you know, we're working with what we got. So another thing, when we're putting this wire on, we want to kind of pull up as we put it on. If you just bend it, you could possibly snap that. So we're going to support kind of right under it and kind of pull up as we twist it around. It's going to help it keep tight to the trunk. It's pretty amazing with this wire what the size of trunks or stems that you can bend and manipulate. I want to tell you about some really great resources for bonsai, and one is going to be Nabari Bonsai, and that is a gentleman, I believe he's in Portland, Oregon, Ryan Neal. Amazing, best resource I've found in my opinion for bonsai, and he's just such a great teacher, and he really gets into all the nuances, and he has a lot of free YouTube videos. He also has monthly subscription. I believe it's about 18 bucks a month. Totally worth it if you're going to really go far in your bonsai practice, because the knowledge he puts out is just amazing in the topics and all that good stuff. Highly suggest him. Another thing we haven't got into yet, which is times of year to do this. We definitely want to do this work during dormancy. When I'm talking, I'm going to go ahead and pack this because we've moved some of the around, so we've loosened this root system up a little bit. So I want to make sure I pack the soil back in there, get it down all. And once this soil is really loose, so we're not packing it down in there like you would with say just organic soil, you know, potting soil, because it's really not going to pack in there. But just getting it between all the spaces that might have opened up as we wired and moved those root systems around. So anyway, we're going to do this during dormancy. That's very important. You would never do this during the middle of the summer. Certain death for the trees. But also depending on where you are, and I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're in Savannah or in the Savannah area. So you're going to be doing it on the same schedule as I'm doing it during dormancy. And the one thing we have to worry about is we don't want this to freeze really hard after. So I'm not going to put it in the greenhouse because it's a tree, it's a species of tree that requires a cold weather for dormancy. So we're going to leave it out, but I'm going to put it somewhere kind of tucked away, maybe next to the house. We don't need a ton of sunlight because there's no leaves right now. So once the weather warms up, we'll put it back out and into more sun. But for now, we're going to leave it on the ground so we get some of that heat, preferably on soil instead of on a concrete pad, tucked away next to the house. But another resource, which is amazing and right here local to us, is Bonsai Beginnings in Port Wentworth. Bill out there, he's absolutely amazing. He's really, really happy to help, give you any advice you want. And he's got, in fact, almost all the quality bonsai that I have are from him. And he's very, very, very affordable. So he has a lot of stock like this, you know, cheap stock. Some of the other forests I've got, actually all the other ones I've sourced those trees from him. And he's planted a lot of them by seed or cutting, and it's really quite interesting to hear his history. Anyway, back into this. So the next thing, I've got a little bit of shape, and we're going to play with it a little bit more here. But if I were really striving for survival, given that we had the setback of these bare roots, this would, you know, we're already kind of pushing our luck there. So I probably wouldn't continue to do anything more. But in this scenario, we have, you know, we're doing this instructional video, so we're going to take it all the way. But if you're doing this on your own, I would probably leave it like that and give it a year to recover. But we're going for this. So with a forest, we really want to see a conical shape. So we need a high point, a low point. We don't just want to go straight across the top. All right, guys. Camera died on me last night. I had a little technical difficulty. So we're back today, and here's what we came up with. Once again, if you look in at these trees, the trunks of them, none of them are in line with each other. We're all different heights. We've bent them to different shapes, and we can still play around with it. And we've cut these terminal buds off on all of them, so we're going to force that secondary growth. All right, so by cutting that terminal bud, we're going to force what we call ramification. So if you can see here, this is ramification. This trunk started as one tall trunk, and it was cut to here. Then that forks, and we have two buds, two stems come from there. Once again, it was cut, and it keeps going on. And that's how you get the taper of those limbs and the structure of a tree on a small scale. So I just added a little bit of moss to top dress this. That's going to kind of help keep the soil in place a little bit as it fills in. It looks really nice. It also helps to hold some moisture in the hot summer, as well as it kind of filters the water. So if you have hard water, it'll kind of filter that before it gets to the soil. Now I collect this moss You want to collect it from sunny areas, just kind of pressing it in here. You want to contact the soil really well. Collect it from sunny areas because our trees need sun, and therefore we're putting it in the sun. So if you collect moss that was completely shaded, then more than likely that moss will die. As far as watering goes, we're gonna, right now in the cooler temperatures, I can probably water this, I would say, every other day, sometimes every 2 or 3 days. But we really don't want to water on a schedule because we want to water when the plant needs it. So we could just kind of put our finger in the soil here, and if it's dry, you know, more than about a ½ inch under there, then we're going to water. We don't want to overwater for sure. You get a lot of root issues there, but you'll see if you overwater for several weeks at a time, you'll start to see decline, but it'll take a little bit of time. But it'd be more important to overwater than underwater, because just one time of missing a watering could potentially kill it, whereas it would take several weeks of overwatering to kill it. But that's actually a very, there's lots of good videos there, but that's going to be probably one of the hardest things, is learning how to water correctly. Also, these plants go outside. It's misinformation that bonsai belongs inside. There's a few different kinds of subtropicals that will do all right inside, but that gets quite tricky, and you'll likely need grow lights and all that good stuff. So stick with your bonsai outside. All right, so some good resources to check out would be, as I mentioned earlier in the video last night, would Bonsai Mirai. You can find him on YouTube. He also has the Mirai Live, which is a great resource if you really want to take a deep dive into bonsai. Check out Heron's Bonsai on YouTube as well. He's got a lot of videos on there. Great resource. With those individuals, though, it's important to note that they're in a completely different hardiness zone, so their trees will be in dormancy at different times, as well as the temperatures are different. So the times that they do root work like this would be completely different than the times that we would here in Savannah, Georgia. So I highly suggest getting in touch with somebody locally. As I mentioned last night, at Bonsai Beginning in Port Wentworth, Bill there, he's amazing. Tell him I sent you out his way. He's got a lot of wonderful trees out there. Really happy to help, and it's also important to learn from him because he is in our zone, so he can give us a lot of information and give you a lot of information that's important to know for our climate. Well, I guess that wraps it up, and thank you guys for watching. I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge and are intrigued by the art. It's a lot of fun, and share with me what you come up with. If you have any questions for me, you can find me on Instagram. It's Riggaman, @Riggaman. So that's RIGGA_man. Hit me up there. Feel free to send me a message, and happy to help you if you need any assistance. Hit Bill at Bonsai Beginning up, and thank you to the Savannah Tree Foundation for donating these and for making this video happen. And please, if you get around to it, please help Savannah Tree Foundation out a little bit monetarily. They do so much from bringing these kind of videos to you for learning, as well as expanding our urban forest. So don't be shy to give them a little helping hand. And thank you guys so much for watching. You have a good one.
And here we go. Beautiful bonsai. So for those of you who may have joined late or came in partway through, there were a couple technical difficulties, so we missed a little bit there. But these were Eastern red buds that Shem was working with. They were bare root trees, so they were a challenge for him. We gave him a good learning opportunity, but he made this beautiful end product with these Eastern red buds. And I am so excited to see what they look like when they flower, because as I'm sure some of you know, the red buds are covered in those beautiful pink little flowers all over them. Such a cool tree, and I think this is such a cool bonsai product. So with that, I just wanted to put our information up here. If anyone has any questions at all, I didn't see any questions in the chat, so I'll stay on for a couple minutes. If anyone has questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. I know Shem popped in for a moment. He may still be here, so we'll see. He might be able to answer them himself because He certainly knows a lot more about bonsai than I do. But yeah, thank you to Shem and to Georgia Power for sponsoring our Tree Talk series. This is just such a cool program to do, to learn about all these ways that, trees impact our daily lives. And there he is. He's still here. Just such a great, really cool way to interact with trees. Bonsai technique has so many quirks, and it's great to see someone like Shem who's also learning. So it's a great person to learn from. Yes, thank you, Shem. That is great. Emily says, thanks, I'm excited to try it. Any notes on what might be different for a dawn redwood? We'll see if Shem wants to answer, if he's still around. I think the dawn redwood, I'm not sure, personally, I'm not sure. I do know that they grow in our region in general. Yeah, you can actually find a few in Forsyth Park. So they do grow here. So I would imagine you'd be able to bonsai it. Particularly wondering if, Emily also adds, particularly wondering if I would trim the top as you showed. I'm not sure. We'll see if Shem answers, if he's still around, but if not, I would be happy to ask him, or email, or Emily, if you'd like to send us an email, I can include Shem on that email as well. I think, checking out some of those references that Shem mentioned might answer some of those questions. I know he said Mirai Bonsai has lots of online resources, as well as Bonsai Beginnings here in Port Wentworth. Lots of great resources online to learn from. So this is just the basics of just getting you started, but really happy that we've got at least one person hooked and excited to try a new bonsai. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So I'm going to close it out. But again, if anyone else that is interested in this, wants to learn or just watch, this is recorded. So I will post this on our YouTube channel later this week, and you can share it from there. Yeah, Shem says he hasn't done a dawn redwood yet, but they do grow well here. Once again, Bonsai Mirai. So great online resource, it seems. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for attending our Tree Talks for February, and tune in for next month. We'll have some more fun tree topics to discuss. All right. Take care, everyone.